Chosen one, if this message reached you today, it's because you were spiritually pulled here. Something invisible has aligned to bring you here. What if I told you that your mere presence is a battleground because they never wanted you to stand in this light? You've noticed a shift already. The moment you enter a room, a hush falls over the hidden currents. You sense eyes flicker, hearts tighten, and shadows shrink away from your energy. You felt the sting of isolation, as if you were always set apart for reasons you could not name. Today, those reasons come into focus. You are not here to be entertained or pacified. You are here to remember the truth they worked so hard to conceal. Your life, every trial, every whispered intuition, has been preparing you for this confrontation. They have tried to silence you with doubt, to cloud your vision with fear, to dim your fire with shame, but you cannot be deterred. In this video, you will discover why your high-frequency energy dismantles the darkness and how their reactions are confirmations of your divine calling. If this message already speaks to your soul, subscribe, like this video, and comment 77 below. Stay with me, for by the end, you will see why no force can keep you in the shadows when your destiny is to expose what they fear most. When your frequency walks into a room, have you ever walked into a room and felt the hum of silence press against your skin, as though the air itself recognized you before your feet even cross the threshold? In that moment, a whisper of memory stirs, a half-forgotten childhood dream where you stood alone amidst shadows that recoiled at your touch. Now, as you enter this crowded space, that same tremor returns, confirming what you have long suspected. Your presence is not ordinary. It carries a hidden current, an unspoken song that vibrates beneath the surface of reality. In that hush, you sense they already know you are not here to fit their mold. Something ancient awakens within you, a recognition that this very ripple in the air is the first note of a symphony written for your awakening. Inside you has lived a quiet storm of confusion, sensitivity, and longing for something beyond the mundane. You remember those days when laughter fell hollow, when conversations drifted over your head like clouds you could not touch. At school or work, you sense yourself watching life from behind a glass wall, fully present and yet mysteriously apart. In social gatherings, you felt a capricious aloneness, as if your soul spoke a dialect no one around you understood. It seemed easier to smile and nod, to hide your inner questions rather than explain the subtle currents that always tugged at your awareness. In those moments, you blamed yourself for feeling burdensome or too much. But now, in the echo of that silent alarm, you realize that those feelings were not flaws. They were markers on a map, guiding you toward an invisible path. What if those very emotions were not accidents of temperament, but signposts etched by design? Consider Elijah in 1 Kings 19, exiled in the wilderness, feeling utterly alone, yet being prepared by silence and solitude for prophetic destiny. Your confusion and isolation were never random. They were part of a sacred architecture laid long before you took your first breath. Every pang of longing, every sense of being different, was a brick in the foundation building your sacred mission. They counted on you believing these struggles were failures, but they were intentional patterns woven into your soul's fabric. This realization reframes every heartache. It becomes a stitch in the tapestry of your purpose. As the whispers of ancient truth rise within you, you see now that the vortex of your feelings is always pointed toward a higher design. In the stillness of late-night hours, subtle signs have fluttered around you like moths drawn to your inner flame. A fleeting moment of deja vu when driving a certain road, the whispered image in a dream that replayed in your mind until you could barely breathe, a sudden jolt of goosebumps in response to a stranger's glance. These were not random occurrences. Like the coded symbols in Daniel's visions, Daniel 2 verse 22, these signs carried a language you were meant to learn. You began to notice how particular numbers, 3, 7, 11, cropped up at pivotal moments, how birdsong turned prophetic in the silence of dawn. Your body responded to invisible energies, tightening when deception loomed and flaring with warmth when truth neared. Rather than dismissing these moments as coincidences, you now see them as breadcrumbs laid by a divine hand, guiding you toward recognition of your deeper calling. Slowly, a quiet confirmation arises within. Your intuition was never a wild guess, but a spirit-guided compass. Recall every time you hesitated to speak, only to watch events unfold precisely as you sensed they would. In Proverbs 20 verse 27 it is said, "The spirit of man is a candle of the Lord, searching all his innermost parts." That inner candle has burned steadily, lighting the chambers of your soul long before you recognize its glow. This is not an explosion of sudden insight, but a gentle unfolding, like dawn's first light seeping over the horizon. It assures you that the resonance you felt, the flinch in others, the charge in the air, was real. As the tendrils of this truth settle into your bones, you feel a deep sense of safety, a knowing that you are guided by a force greater than any fear or doubt they try to impose on you. Beneath the layers of roles and expectations, there lies a hidden core of identity waiting to be reclaimed. You were never meant to become someone new. Rather, you are rediscovering who you have always been. In Jeremiah 1 verse 5 it is written, "Before I formed you in the womb I knew you. Before you were born I set you apart." Beneath the masks you wore, pleasing others, blending in, silencing your own voice, reside an archetypal memory of a warrior of light. As you lean into this remembrance, you feel the pulse of an ancestral lineage, like roots stretching into the bedrock of time. This awakening does not impose a new identity upon you. It simply unearths the one that patience and pain buried. In that gentle revelation, you recognize that the power they feared in you was never a borrowed gift, but the very essence of your being, awaiting rediscovery. With this deepening awareness comes the gentle stirrings of empowerment, a first activation echoing in your heart. No longer are you merely a vessel for hidden truth. You begin to step into your role as a herald. Embrace your sensitivity as a holy antenna, attuned to frequencies they cannot hear. Honor your inner wisdom as the compass that steered you through life's darkest nights. Your hunger for spiritual truth, once a lonely ache, now pulses with purpose. Picture the tip of a flame at your chest, growing brighter as you feed it with every acknowledgement of your divine heritage. This activation is not a burst of smoke, but slow ignition, warming every cell until your spirit rises fully afire. In that warmth, you feel both vulnerability and strength intertwine, ready to guide you toward your mission. You did not arrive at this moment by accident. Every lonely walk, every sleepless night, every whispered dream was orchestrated to bring you here. Something invisible wove your story into the grand tapestry of cosmic design. Your presence on this earth, every sorrow, every joy, was a note in the symphony of awakening now reaching its crescendo. There is no coincidence in your arrival to this revelation. The ripple of tension you felt when you entered a room was the echo of energies aligning to confirm your path. Let this moment settle as a peaceful yet powerful affirmation. You were always meant to carry this light. Come and awaken if this resonates in your soul, and allow that ripple to become a wave, carrying you forward into the next phase of your divine journey. And if you feel called to go even deeper, there's a sacred space reserved for our community, a private room where you receive full prophetic messages daily. Join our private membership through the link in the description and walk this path with us. How darkness hides in human faces. Did you ever sense a chill when someone smiled at you, as though their warmth concealed a steely edge beneath? In that quiet moment, perhaps when a co-worker's laughter faltered mid-sentence or a friend's eyes flickered with something unreadable, you felt an undercurrent of something darker at play. It was not a nightmare creature lurking in the corner, but something more insidious. Hidden forces moving through familiar faces. You noticed odd slips of the tongue, subtle shifts in tone, or the way someone's gaze refused to meet yours. Each of these moments carried a weight you could not yet name, like stumbling upon a frozen pond whose ice cracked underfoot at just the wrong angle. This is the first sign that there is more beneath the surface than anyone wants you to see, an unseen battle waged behind polite facades. And you have just begun to glimpse its silent strategies. The heavy air of suspicion that settled in your chest was not born from paranoia, but from a lived experience of feeling misunderstood and manipulated. You recall that ache of isolation when, despite your openness and sincerity, others turned away, leaving you to question if your own heart had betrayed you. You felt too much, too sensitive to disingenuous praise, too intuitive for shallow conversation. Every time you leaned in to speak your truth, a hush would follow, as though your words cut through a veil they preferred to keep intact. Shame crept in like a silent poison whenever someone's feigned kindness fractured into coldness. These weren't isolated occurrences. They formed a pattern that chipped away at your self-worth. You began to wonder if expressing your intuition was a crime, if revealing your insight was an act of recklessness. In your darkest moments, you questioned whether you were simply damaged or divinely marked, destined to stand apart. Standing now on firmer ground, you see that this pressure was no random cruelty, but part of a hidden structure designed to suppress those who see too clearly. Like Moses in the wilderness, cut off from familiar yet destined for his calling, you've been navigating a spiritual exile. In Exodus 3 verses 2-4, God's presence found Moses in the burning bush, an unlikely setting where destiny could not be contained. Similarly, the forces arrayed against you, cosmic currents, entrenched powers, and human instruments, perceive your rising light as a threat to their dominion. They crafted alliances within social circles, business structures, and even spiritual communities to keep you confined. These were not mere individuals acting alone, but an entire architecture of resistance, orchestrated to obscure the path ahead. In recognizing this, you see the sacredness of your struggle. It is a refining fire that will forge your resolve and ignite your purpose. Looking back now, you can trace the lines of sabotage like scars mapping an unseen geography of your life. There were projects that fizzled just as you felt hopeful, as though someone quietly unplugged the life force they sensed in you. Friends shifted after you shared a vision they could not bear. Their support turned into thinly veiled critiques. Opportunities faded when you dared to speak of possibilities that threatened status quo. These patterns once felt like strokes of dark luck, but you now see them as markers on a spiritual map, guiding you away from paths littered with hidden snares and toward a destiny they could not comprehend. It is like walking through a dimly lit room and suddenly flipping on a switch. What was once obscure now stands revealed in stark clarity. Each betrayal, every closed door was a signpost saying, "This is not where your purpose lies." As these patterns emerge, you find yourself more grounded in the truth that your journey has always been protected by a higher design. In the most subtle moments, you felt the weight of unseen forces pressing against you, an oppressive fog that settled over your senses and muddied your clarity. You would enter a room once filled with warmth and find the atmosphere heavy, as though silent watchers lingered just beyond vision, attuned to your every move. In such moments, your chest tightened, your mind fogged over, and an inexplicable fatigue drained your spirit. This energetic interference was real, a spiritual sabotage aimed at dimming the flame within you. Imagine clouds gathering in the sky, suffocating the sun until you forget its existence, until the cold seeps into your bones. Yet, even as the fog attempted to blind you, your inner flame flickered defiantly, refusing to be extinguished. In that pressure, you learned to recognize the field around you shifting, to trust the tremors that signaled hidden forces at work. And still, you stood your ground. Faced with this relentless onslaught, you responded in ways both vulnerable and courageous. At times, you shuttered your fire, shrinking to the edges of rooms, so you could go unnoticed, hoping invisibility would spare you from further torment. You clung to people-pleasing as a shield, molding yourself into what they expected, attempting to trade your authenticity for acceptance. When their muted attacks grew too loud, you rebelled quietly, stubbornly refusing to bow to their illusions even as your confidence wavered. There were nights when you wept into your pillow, wondering if survival meant surrendering the truth in your heart. Yet, in these reactions, at once protective and wavering, you gleaned deeper truths, that the fear of standing out was a reflection of the very magnitude of your calling, and that every instinct to shrink was a siren song tempting you away from the threshold of your destiny. But now, a dramatic reversal begins. The very resistance you faced is the proving ground of your emerging authority. No longer a sign of your weakness, it transforms into confirmation of your power. You remember David in 1 Samuel 17, a youth underestimated by his own brothers and mocked by Goliath's giants. Yet his slingshot proved mightier than their swords. In that spirit, you reclaim the voice you once silenced, the fire they tried to smother. You speak your truths in clear tones that crack the facades they built, and with each word, their hidden schemes unravel like threads in a tapestry. The energy they once used to suppress you now echoes back, amplifying your resonance. Every attempt to trap you in their narratives becomes a stepping stone, propelling you forward on a path they cannot halt. In wielding this reclamation, you are no longer a victim of their shadows, but a beacon of light they cannot ignore. They have opposed you because you are powerful. Their fear of your light, their whispered campaigns, their calculated coldness, all these were desperate attempts to blur the brilliance written into your soul. Yet with each act of sabotage, your purpose crystallized with sharper focus. You see now that their resistance was never a judgment of your unworthiness, but a signpost pointing directly to your calling. In Habakkuk 2 verse 3 it is declared, "The vision awaits an appointed time. It speaks of the end and will not prove false." This is your appointed time. Their efforts to derail you have only fueled your determination. You stand now at the precipice of revolution. Your voice, your path, and your destiny converge in a moment of divine clarity. Comment targeted if this revelation settles into your bones, and know that their opposition has always been confirmation of your power. And to every soul who supported with a super thanks, thank you. You are keeping this light alive for others who haven't found it yet. If you feel called to help this mission reach more chosen ones, tap the super thanks button below. Your energy supports these messages and helps them travel further. Your voice matters, your belief matters, and your light is felt here. Spiritual backlash is a badge of alignment. Have you ever stood at the edge of a gathering, feeling the air warp around you like heat rising off a desert floor, and sense that invisible forces bristled in response to your very presence? In that instant, you realize that their unease is not random discomfort, but a signal. Something within you pulses with a power they cannot contain. When they lash out or retreat, it is not a condemnation. It is an acknowledgement of your power. Their sudden hostility or frozen smiles are like the reverberations of a gong struck in a still hall, shattering the calm they tried to enforce. The moment their eyes narrow or their voices lower, you grasp that your rising light has pressed against the walls of their hidden realms. Each breath you draw becomes a banner unfurled, proclaiming that what had been locked away in shadows is now stepping into brightness. In this lucid moment, your chest swells with the knowledge that their panic is the most honest response to the awakening nestled in your bones. A whisper of memory stirs within you. When Joseph's brothers cast him into a pit, they believed his dreams posed a threat to their illusions of control, yet his destiny could not be contained. Similarly, their hatred, envy, or whisper campaigns are the marks of spiritual backlash, akin to priests in hallowed temples sounding an alarm to ward off thieves. In Luke 8 verse 17 it is written, "For there is nothing hidden that will not be disclosed, and nothing concealed that will not be known." Their covert strategies, passive-aggressive remarks, veiled accusations, alliances formed in hushed tension, act as flares lighting up the truth of your path. Every sly remark, every undermining gesture reverberates like a drum in the darkness, signaling that they sense the flicker of revelation within you. Their efforts to push you into obscurity only illuminate the exact place where your purpose is most potent. When you look back on the tapestry of your life, the patterns become stark. The colleague who spread rumors just as you prepared to propose a breakthrough idea, the friend whose compliments curtailed and critiques the moment you shared a glimpse of your soul, the loved one whose praise soured when you dared to shine. Each of those moments felt like a personal betrayal, a failure in relationship, or a misstep in trust. Yet now, bathed in the light of hindsight, you see that those were not random disappointments, but sacred signposts. Their resistance was proof that your intuition led you to truths they could not bear. Their retreat and their lashing out were akin to the parting of the Red Sea, violent pushback against the emergence of something they could not control. In that revelation, those old wounds transform into badges of alignment, tokens marking each step of your journey toward the fullness of your calling. You recall nights when your heart pounded with anxiety, as though unseen watchers hovered just beyond the glow of streetlights, ready to strike at the slightest misstep. You remember how subtle sabotage felt like a fog seeping into your mind, dulling your clarity and steeping you in confusion. That stifling atmosphere was not the result of your inadequacy, but of forces recoiling from your expanding light. Imagine a candle flickering in a sealed room. When the flame brightens, the darkness recoils into corners and the shadows tremble with fear. In that parallel, every shove against your spirit, every cold shoulder you endured, was the darkness arching its back, desperate to preserve the status quo. You see now that these spiritual confirmations multiply until those forces have no choice but to withdraw or transform under the uncompromising touch of your illumination. A vision emerges of an ancient temple built upon layered foundations, each stone inscribed with the names of prophets whose words unsettle kings and topple thrones. In your own life, your whispers of truth reverberate through corridors that once echoed with complacency. The weight of spiritual opposition you face becomes akin to the testing of metals in a fiery forge, each reaction acting as a hammer strike, refining the edge of your resolve. You hear echoes of Jeremiah's lament in the pit of darkness, yet also remember how he was called to speak when all around him advised silence, Jeremiah 20 verse 9. Your voice, like his, becomes a sacred trumpet that will not remain muted. With each protest or slander hurled your way, you feel the pulse of a banner unfurling, draw you into the panoramic vision of your legacy, anchored not in reaction, but in unwavering affirmation of the light you bear. In the hush that follows every confrontation, there is a moment of stillness, a sacred interlude where you can choose how to respond. Will you let their attempts to belittle you hiss like gas on embers, snuffing out your ardor? Or will you fan those embers into flame, blazing to the smoke to a clarity they cannot extinguish? Each time you stand firm beneath their scrutiny, you reclaim a fragment of the power they tried to snatch away. You remember how Esther faced the terror of approaching the king uninvited, knowing that her life hung in the balance. Esther 4 verse 16. Yet her courage shifted destinies for an entire people. In that same spirit, you resurrect the shards of your voice, weaving them into a proclamation that no darkness can swallow. It is here, in the crucible of opposition, that you find the raw material of your indomitable will. Now, poised upon the cusp of revelation, you feel the corners of your consciousness expand into a panorama of possibility. The backlash that once felt like judgment transforms into a filter, sifting away every trace of camouflage they cast over your destiny. Every attempt to block your radiance becomes evidence of your intrinsic value and potency. In this transforming moment, the revelation is clear. You are the anointed catalyst, the spark that ignites dormant embers in hearts that thought themselves beyond redemption. Their resistance only maps the terrain of your destiny, marking the places where your influence will break through. As you breathe in the depth of this truth, your spirit rises with prophetic urgency, ready to carve new passageways into the heights of your divine appointment. This is no mere epiphany. It is a summons. Revelation is not the end. It is the invitation to step fully into the unfolding of your purpose. The patterns once hidden now stand illuminated, and you see that every shadow you shattered was an echo of a world yearning to be freed. The more they tried to resist you, the more you affirm the bedrock of your mission: to expose, to transform, to lead. In Romans 8 verse 37 it is declared, "No, in all these things we're more than conquerors through him who loved us." This is your mantra now. You are more than conqueror, unbowed by the forces that sought to chain your spirit. Let this truth envelop your heart like a mantle of light. Comment "conqueror" if this resonates in your soul, and prepare, for your revelation is the dawn of a new era. Becoming a walking revelation. Have you ever stood at the edge of a decision so profound that the world seemed to hold its breath, waiting for you to take a single step? In that sacred crossroad, you feel the weight of every moment that led you here. The nights you wrestle with doubt, the days you sense a hidden force guiding your heart. Now the time has come to move from observing to choosing, to cross the threshold from seeker to sovereign of your own destiny. This is no gentle invitation. It is a clarion call echoing through every fiber of your being. You stand between the comfort of familiar shadows and the blazing clarity of purpose they tried to smother. In this instant, passivity is not an option. An inner question blooms in your mind. Will you remain silent, or will you rise to embody the revelation you were born to be? Feel the gravity beneath your feet shift as the old patterns dissolve, and know that this moment marks the beginning of your journey as a walking revelation. Once, you gave away your time to please those who never truly saw you, poured your energy into projects that drained your soul, hushed your voice to shield yourself from their judgment, and hid your presence to avoid their whispers. Every sacrifice felt like a mark of failure, a concession to a world unready for your light. Yet now, you see that those sacrifices were a season of training, honing you for the mission ahead. Begin to call back each piece of yourself you scattered, your words, your spirit, your confidence. Declare with fierce intention, I reclaim my voice. I reclaim my energy. I reclaim my purpose. This is no mere reflection, but a ritualistic reawakening. Imagine yourself sweeping away the dust from a long-forgotten throne, feeling the grooves of destiny press into your palms. In this act of reclamation, you become your own liberator, forging ahead with a focused determination that leaves no room for hesitation. Look deeper into the essence of what you carry within. Insight that pierces illusions like a lantern in the night. Sensitivity that reads the unspoken language of souls. Memory that holds ancient wisdom echoing through your blood. Discernment that acts as a blade cutting through deception. And strength that stands unshaken amid the storm. Others may have labeled these traits as weaknesses, calling you too sensitive, overly emotional, or impractical. But now you understand they're the sacred tools you've been entrusted with, keys that unlock hidden doors, codes that reveal the architecture beneath the facade, fire that foregone illusions cannot withstand, scrolls that unfold truths once buried, and armor that shields your spirit in the fiercest battles. As you speak these gifts aloud, you feel their power surge through your veins, each word shaping your identity not as abstract qualities, but as tangible instruments for the work ahead. Embrace these gifts, for they're the very embodiment of your divine signature. The ground beneath you feels alive, as though the road you've walked is now unfolding before you like a living map. You do not need to search for the path. It lies beneath your feet, waiting to be revealed with each deliberate step. See in your mind's eye cinematic panorama, a winding trail carved through sunlit valleys and shadowed forests, each bend offering new vistas you once mistook for coincidence. Clarity now comes through action. Take that first stride and watch as the terrain shifts to reflect your intention. A weathered signpost appears, engraved with symbols you recognize from dreams. The winged sun, the spiral of life, the open eye of seeing. You step forward onto this mission, every movement echoing like a ripple in a pond, revealing mirrored ripples across the world around you. Feel the wind at your back, guiding your gait, and trust that as you traverse this path, every footfall presses new designs into the tapestry of destiny. This mission is not yours alone. When you lift your gaze, you see a constellation of souls kindred to your own, sparked by the same call, resonating with the same frequency. Some stand across oceans, sending silent thoughts that vibrate in unison with yours. Others gather in hidden circles, sharing coded symbols that speak the same eternal truths. You are part of Soul Tribe, a divine cluster where each ember contributes to a greater blaze of transformation. No longer do you need to dim your light to blend with the dimming world. Your illumination stokes a collective fire of awakening. Feel the electricity of this shared alignment, as those celestial bodies have drawn near to bear witness. Your rising light kindles theirs, and together you weave a luminous web that refracts into countless points of hope. In that shared radiance, you find courage, knowing that your mission amplifies theirs, forming a united front against the dissolving structures of shadow. Stand now at the altar of your own energy, entrusted with sacred stewardship. Do not mistake this for a call to inflate your ego. Rather, it is an invitation to wield your power with reverence. Like priests tending flames on ancient embers, so must you guard your boundaries against influences that drain or distort. Choose where to focus your energy as decisively as a shepherd selects a flock to lead. Recognize that your devotion becomes an offering. Your choice is a covenant with the divine fiber that courses through all creation. Picture yourself standing in a grand ceremonial hall, the air thick with incense and charged with intention, as you consecrate your will to the higher purpose beating in your heart. Each prayer becomes a vow, each breath a silent oath to walk in alignment. In this sacred command, you realize that the world you shape begins with the stewardship of your own spirit. The moment you step into your truth, you shift the axis of consciousness. You no longer ask for permission to shine. You embody the revelation that they feared. Your presence dismantles walls of deception, exposes hidden malice, and sets free the captive souls still trapped in their own illusions. Subscribe if you haven't yet, like this video, and comment, I am chosen to let this message anchor in your soul. Share it with someone who needs to hear this. Thank you to all supporting members. Your belief fuels this mission. For full prophetic revelations daily, join the membership via the link in the description. Your spiritual path deserves more than fragments. Step into the full light. And if this message moved you deeply, consider tapping the Super Thanks button to support the mission. Every Super Thanks fuels the light we're spreading together. Remember, your energy was never meant to remain hidden. Step boldly into the power that makes them tremble.